We have reports that the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, has urged the federal government to pay 3 months' worth of withheld salaries still owed to not-teaching staff in federal universities. SSANU President Mohammed Ibrahim emphasized the need for the remaining 50 billion naira in earned allowances alongside the arrears of a 25/35% increment and a wage award. The union's call follows a recent indefinite strike by SSANU and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions, NASU, which began on October 28 due to withheld salaries from 2022. On November 2nd, the government released 1 month of the outstanding salaries, prompting the unions to suspend the strike from November 5. The upcoming SSANU Delegates Conference, scheduled for November 13, will focus on respecting collective bargaining agreements in the education sector. Please, let's stop there. Respecting collective bargaining agreements in the education sector. Some people have made talks or said things like, oh, there's no unity and all that. In fact, before I start analyzing that, I would like you to give the analysis on that yourself, because I see you smiling concerning
our greatest challenge in this country, policy formulation, entering into agreement has never been a challenge to us as a people in Nigeria. What has been our greatest challenge is keeping to terms and conditions of every agreement. It's our greatest problem, is a fundamental problem. Not until we learn how to keep agreement, we will still be groping in the dark. It's supposed to be, once we agree, everybody keeps his own side of the agreement instead of the other party breaching it. Once the other party breaches an agreement, there's always an issue. You can enter into a collective bargaining an agreement after collective bargaining between the association and representative of government, and at the end of the day, they decide to call off the strike and go back to work, only for government now pay these people what we have agreed with together. They don't pay them. So it's always been a problem in this country. It's a problem of implementation. And not until we learn how to implement and keep agreement, we'll keep having challenges.
Is it really a case of us not knowing how to keep agreement? Or is there more to the government not keeping its side?
They are not sincere. They enter most of these things with so much insincerity.
Let's look
because
at this
if you are sincere when entering an agreement, you don't need to be forced to play your own part of the agreement. It's because one party is not sincere. It's a marriage of two strange bedfellows.
And we get that a lot in marriages.
Of course.
Even though that's not our focus. Let's go back to what we're saying about the government not keeping its side of the agreement. Now, we have different administrations that have come in to power. Let's look at the ASU agreements with government down to 2009. How many administrations have come in and left since that period? Different agreements, and then you hear that the government has not kept to his own side of the bargain. And that's what we're trying to find out, why that is usually the case. The case where that agreement is done and please take note of that, different administrations, yet it is not being kept.
First, for me, I think it has to do with lack of continuity, because we don't even have a template. If there's a template, you discover that once you come, it's like a relay race. Once they hand over the baton to you, you must maintain your lane. You must not drop the baton till you get to the terminal point. So the case of Nigeria has always been lack of continuity, and it has affected most of the agreement, especially when it has to do with government. Any person that comes, because of there's a lack of template, everybody wants to run his or her own agenda. But in Sena Climbs, it's not that way. It's already something that has been set. It's a program that is running. So as soon as you're coming, it has to be in line with that program, because these are laudable programs, people-oriented things. So, power actually belongs to the people. So they will definitely vote who will always work in line with the needs and aspiration of the people and not his own.
So if we say the problem is continuity, then what happened to that administration that entered into that agreement, keeping it?
Because there is no sincerity.
That's to show you that there's more to the problem than just continuity.
Of course,
there's really more to it.
Fundamental problem. First, I mentioned insincerity. on the part of even one of the parties entering the agreement, being the government. First, it has to do with insincerity before you talk of even continuity. If for me, I enter into an agreement with someone with some level of insincerity, you taking over from me, I don't think you would want to toe that line, because it already has a fundamental default or a fundamental defect, so you wouldn't want to inherit it. But if it's something that is done with open mind, it's something that is done with sincerity of purpose, the next person coming in will definitely have human face to run with it.
Let's look at other issues here. The FG is not just a name. These are usually individuals occupying these offices. So if we say the FG is not keeping to an agreement, let's look at the individuals. Do some of these our leaders really know what, are they giving enough orientation to know what it means to sit on that seat? Or is there more to it, that when one enters into that office, everything just changed? Or changes, all the plans that you had, everything just changes, and you begin to work according to the way your predecessor actually worked?
But in Nigeria, it's not like that. Every other person that comes has his or her own agenda that is totally different.
But it's usually tagged under agreements not being kept, greed, insincerity. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
How come everyone who sits in that office, maybe not everyone, but in cases of agreements not being made and some of the things that are supposed to be done not being done, does it mean that everybody just passes this baton of insincerity to the next person? That's the question.
Well, you have just answered it yourself.
I didn't answer it.
You did.
I asked the question.
Because nobody wants to inherit a liability.
What exactly is the problem?
I say it's a fundamental problem. Nobody wants to inherit a liability.
What is the orientation like when one wants to come into leadership and power?
First, leadership has to do with call to service and service to the people. But in Nigeria here, I think it's a reverse situation where it has to do with amassment of wealth, personal aggrandizement, and how to better the lot of your immediate family, not environment. Ordinarily, if you are called to serve, is to serve the people. It comes with a lot of sacrifices.
Yes, it does.
You put the people first and not you.
And that's why I'm asking, what is the orientation usually like before people handle leadership positions?
Well, they come, they tell us everything we want to hear.
No, I mean for the candidates now. Is there usually some sort of orientation to help them understand what they are getting into and the roles that they're supposed to play?
For me, I think it
begs that question.
It's a systemic failure. What I say is a systemic failure. The system itself is already default, has a defect. So it must start from the scratch. There must be a reorientation. Letting these people know that coming into power, assuming a position, is to serve the people. And you must put the people first. The interest of the people first, and not you. If not, we do have some National Assembly members who are there on full time, collecting huge amount of money every month, doing nothing. While if you even go to the floor of the house, some of them are even sleeping during proceeding. Some has been in the house for 4 years. They cannot even have one motion tied to their name.
And you know, we see that a lot during plenary. And you just see them gisting. Sometimes when I watch, I used to ask questions like, how do they know what was discussed with all these distractions? With all these distractions that are going on.
And the next thing you hear, they've gone on recess. They are resuming. So this thing's supposed to be on part-time.
Let's go back to the statement you made earlier on how many times have we really heard politicians going on strike because they've not been paid, and then workers who are paid peanuts sometimes would go on strike because they've been owed salaries for years. You'll be hearing since 2022 and all that. Are we presenting ourselves as a walkover, as a people? Is there any way we are presenting ourselves as a walkover?
Nigerians are very resilient. Nigerians are very unique people. Nigerians are people you cannot find. It's very rare to find the kind of spirit that an average we have. It's very, so we are not walkover.
So why does it seem like it just keeps happening over and over
because
again? If there's a problem and there are two parties
we are not
involved,
walkover.
yes.
The problem is that Nigerians are docile. Why I say Nigerians are docile? Nobody wants to be mentioned. Nobody wants to take the bull by the horn. So long as it doesn't concern me, everybody, there's this apathy.
But even when there's a resistance from the parties involved, there's always still that case. Look at these people are threatening strike. Look at SSANU just finished their strike. So there's usually, saying Nigerians are docile, I know there's that part where people feel like we can do more than we are doing. But these people are going on strike. They're speaking up. They're penning down. They're staying back at home. They're doing all these things. But yet it continues.
If you go on strike, okay, like a case of this one now that they went on strike, how many days? They were paid 1 month. What stops them from saying, okay, we have collected 1 month, we still stay at home, pay us complete? Because the government have never been sincere. They will tell you that, okay, so period we will do X, Y, Z. Or have they ever kept that part of the agreement without being forced? Check since the history of SSANU till date. They've always entered one form of agreement or the other. And at the end of the day, you will see them, because of the interest of the children that are at home, that have not gone to school, Nigerians will beg them. They will whip up sentiment without even looking into their own welfare. And they will down tools and come back. The same government will do what they know best how to do, to default agreement.
You just mentioned the party that we haven't mentioned since we started this conversation. That's the students.
Yes.
They get affected.
Of course.
These are lives of individuals that are put on hold because they have to stay back at home because some lecturers are striking.
They are suffering because of a systemic failure from the part of the government, given the fact that they have not been able to keep their own part of the agreement. Well, there are always disputes, and at the end of the day, they will look at it on its merit.
Do we have to let the students keep suffering these issues?
Do we also want a situation where we will churn out half-baked graduates, where at the end of the day, a program that is supposed to last 4 years, they stay up to 6 years?
But that's the issue now. That's what's happening.
Do we continue in it?
That's what I'm asking. Do we allow the students to keep suffering the fight between the federal government and these lecturers and non-academic staff? Because from your recommendations, you have talked about strike. And the fact that when they go on strike, they should not just, resume if their demands are not completely met. So what happens to the students when all of these strikes and all of that are happening?
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite pathetic. But behind every story, or behind every glory, there must be a story.
Don't you think it's being
and
unfair?
No pain. No gain without pain.
So who should have that pain now? You're putting the pain on the students. These
if you have a parent who is a university don, who is a lecturer, or who is a non-academic staff in the university, and you see them go through this on a daily basis, how would you feel?
And having to see your children at home when they're supposed to be in school, how would one feel? So it's also on the other side. I feel like when we have these conversations,
has to be more on the government. For me also, I think there should be some form of sympathy strike to bring people to their knees.
What do you mean by sympathy strike?
Non-academic staff,
yes,
they are having issues with the system, and they discover that they are being taken for granted. The academic side should also join the strike and protest.
Oh, so the school should shut down.
Under protest,
and
then
the students should go back home.
When they look at it, they are not listening to them. Maybe the NUPENG or
they should join the strike.
Should join sympathy with other associations.
Wow.
So that way they will bring government to their knees.
So the country should be on standstill.
That's how they want it.
Who wants it? That's how who wants it now?
That's how the government wants it. So by the time other associations joins a strike in form of sympathy, because whether I like it or not, in trade unionism, they always tell you that injury to one is injury to all. So by the time they start, the government will definitely come back
Now let's look at the
As
effects.
okay, now let me tell you,
Yes.
as an employer within your subsystem in your house, you come back, your security man has gone on strike, your cleaner has gone on strike, your porter has gone.
Because you didn't pay your security man.
So and at the end of the day, they are there. You can't send them away to bring new people because you can't pay them. Even if you go and bring police to
But
enforce,
you know the
police will
funny
say,
part
"Oga,
of it,
pay these people."
even these people on strike will be affected.
Granted, they will be affected, but for once, let them take the pain so that at the end of the day, they will be gained.
Let's look at the effects now.
But the only problem we have is that you know
Yes.
where government used to bring them to their knees, no work, no pay.
That's the issue.
That's where government. So most of the times, if they are virtually coerced into coming back, because once you strike, they will tell you no work, no pay, and before you know what is happening, they come back again under that same.
And the government can let go of this stuff. They can lay off. If they find out that these people are on strike, they're not coming back to work, they can lay them off.
These are the issues.
These are the issues.
So for me, that's when we get to a situation.
We should look at the
that's
effects.
when we can call for sympathy strike.
So they can't lay off everyone. but then let's go back to the effect. I've been saying let's go to the effects now. The people who are actually going to be affected by all this, the students.
Yes, students.
Don't you think this is also going to lead to insecurity in our environment? When the students, big minds, smart brains are left at home doing nothing, idle, what do you think they'll start doing? And now we who are on strike, by we now I mean the parents, I'm involving myself now. The parents who are on strike, what then happens to them? Because they will get affected by these insecurities. So that is crippling the country. Don't you see it that way?
Yes, it's a way. It will. But like I said, for you to gain, you must go through pain.
Is there a way we can actually channel this, since we say we want the government to feel pain, right? Is there a way we can channel the pain to the rightful people, the people who should actually feel the pain, and not circling the pain amongst ourselves?
There's a way a strike will get to when you start having sympathy strike from other associations. They tell you why we are going on strike is because you are having issues with these people. Okay, you have. At that point, the people might rise against them.
How is strike the only option here? Because that's the only thing that you have recommended.
What else do you want to do? You want to go into another round of negotiation? You can't go into another round of negotiation. But it's just so pathetic that these workers are at the mercy of government. Once you strike, they always threaten them with no work, no pay. And once it gets to like 2 or 3 months, they threaten you that they want to lay you off. So before you know it, they hurriedly come back again to work under that inhuman condition.
All right, so we hope that more will be done concerning it. We do not enjoy the strikes. I'm very sure that the people who are affected, the students, do not enjoy the strike. Nobody would want a situation where there will be strikes. Like I said, there are lots of effects down to insecurity, and that's not a good thing. We're trying to curb the rising cases of insecurity that we have in Nigeria, and then we should not be looking at ways to add to it and increase the cases of insecurity, and don't you think this is also this looks like it's also going to discourage people from education? There's some students who already feel from secondary school, they already feel like there's no need to go to university.
No, whether you like it or
so
not.
Education, these strikes that go on with schools, ASU and the rest of them, how has this affected the number of people we have coming into the universities? How has this affected the mindset of young people concerning education?
It has not affected because everybody wants his or her child to at least get that basic university degree, which is
the students now,
yeah,
the youths now. How is it affecting their own mindset concerning
their
education?
mindset in a way because one, by the time this strike lingers, they might want to engage in some antisocial vices, some form of things that are not palatable. But if they are occupied academically, they always say that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. But if they are properly engaged, they won't have time to think of other negative vices or antisocial vices. So it's a two-way thing. If they are occupied, but if they are not occupied.
Because we hear children saying there's no need for them to go to university.
This is a
serious
problem.
That
there's no need to have a university education. I tell that person that I think that person needs to be examined. Well, I say that person needs to be examined. With the way Nigeria is now, nobody should settle for a school certificate.
But they are faves. The people they think are successful, some of them do not have that certificate.
But they still go back and acquire it soon or later.
But no matter do they know, how the students don't know that, yes.
They don't know that, but most of these people, that at some point, they feel that something is missing. Even amongst their so-called rich people when they are talking.
Okay.
So they must also have it to add to their CV to boost their personality. So whoever says that a university degree doesn't matter, I think that person needs to be examined. He needs to go through a psychiatric or a psychopathic test.
Would you really blame these individuals? I think what that person needs is an orientation, like the one you're giving now, telling the importance of university education.
Of course.
Because too many people believe now that there's really no need for that. People see success as money.
It's not all about
having money. So when they go on social media and they see the people who have money that they follow, they realize that, oh, this person is not even a graduate. This is a dropout. So I have hope without going to school.
They still go, see such people, they still go back and acquire it.
Yeah,
some get it quietly. Some of them, they acquire it quietly.
Since we talked about orientation, what about really giving these students the orientation, these young people the orientation that they need about the importance of university education?
For me,
backing it up with taking off these strikes.
See, for me, I always tell people that the basis for the training of every child should be the home. Once a child misses home training, there is nothing the school, the church, and the society can do. Because the society, the church, and the school are being fed with what the home presents to them. So as parents, you must first of all train your child, instill that discipline and virtues, so that by the time he or she goes to school, the school, they are accepting a product that is in line with the vision and aspiration of the school. But if you give them a child that has faulty foundation, if you are not careful, that child will corrupt other children. So for me, it begins from the home, not the school, not the church, and not the larger society.